Right? And I'm not
All
playing.
right, folks, welcome to another Comic Talk. We are here. It's going to be a great time and definitely something different, right? It's fun to have different folks on, different perspectives and things like that. So, how about someone who hasn't read a ton of comic books, who's kind of new at, what to read and kind of learning and things like that? The angry Canadian, all the way from Japan, my brother. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and doing this.
Hey, I appreciate it, Pops. And yeah, I am quite the noob when it comes to comics. I did grow up reading a specific comic line, but when it comes to Marvel or DC or even like Spawn comics, I'm very like unfamiliar with that. So it's pretty cool being able to dive into some of these big hitters, like kind of short story hitters, and
Mhm.
just get a deeper appreciation for like these superheroes and the storytelling that was done many years ago.
Yeah, I think it's really kind of cool to have got to meet you and kind of get to know you and what your interest is. I know we've messaged back and forth a little bit. And what is your experience, even when you were younger, as far as anything that you ever really read, or your superhero exposure and that kind of thing? Was it just mostly through television and movies, or what was some of the things that you had in your background that kind of even like has your interest peaked?
So when I was a kid, the comic line that I read was from the Lego toy known as Bionicle. And about every 2 months, Lego would send you a magazine if you sign up for it, and it would have like the latest products and like some kid stuff in it. But there always came with this Bionicle uh, comic, and thoroughly enjoyed that because it was just like something I was into at the time, the storytelling and everything. And I still have some of those today and whatnot. And so I read that consistently. I missed out on I think the first several years because I was too young, but I read pretty much from I don't know, maybe 2005 all the way up until it finished in 2010. And then when it came to superheroes, I was at the right age when the Tobey Maguire movies came out for
Hmm.
Spider-Man. So like I had like the Spider-Man birthday parties and all that stuff. So I always had a love for Spider-Man from a young age, but I never read any of the comics and I've only seen the movies at the time. So it wasn't until I was probably about a teenager and there was like a library summer reading program, and I won like a Marvel comic, like a graphic novel of some sorts. And I don't think I still have it, but it was just like a bunch of random stories in it from the Marvel universe, and they had like Spider-Man, and there was also Magneto with Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in it. And again, I don't remember what specific stories there were. So at that time, I was pretty interested in a little bit in superheroes, but not like super invested. But when when the MCU came out originally with like Iron Man and Thor and Captain America, that's when I really got interested into the superhero space. And I had friends at work that were like diehard like superhero fans. They read the comics, they knew everything, and so I would just like listen to them talk and learn stuff here and there. But yeah, I never really read comics even as an adult, like these type of comics, until just recently, because I've been hanging out with you guys and watching your guys' videos and learning about some of these these big name big stories out there that are like 4 issues or whatever. Yeah, so this is the Bionicle comic.
Bionicle 2005, 2001. This is a really OG.
Yeah, and this was like the highlight of my every 2 months, I guess you could say. So but yeah, the art in this, like the first couple years, the art in this was just fantastic. It was really detailed and a lot of good coloring and stuff. And then they kind of did an art style change in like 2004, I want to say, to 2005. And then they did another art style change in 2006, and then they just pretty much kept it like that. But
There's your toys. Yeah,
yeah, yep.
there's your toys.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed it, and that was, like, the only comics I read, so and then also the random, like, Christian comics or, like, I don't know, random comics I would find at the library that were just there to look at. Anyways, but yeah, Bionicle was, 100% what I read.
No, I think that's really kind of how most of it started. We ended up with some sort of introduction, right? And you're older like I am. It was like one of these things where back then they were in like grocery stores and stuff, right? So it was like thrift stores and grocery stores and things like that. So you pretty much would find things. And I have to admit that Marvel had kind of a big marketing push back then. And then of course the Batman, that cheesy Adam West show, right, had
Mm,
sort of a
yes.
legacy behind it. And then once you get to like 1978, right after Star Wars was when Superman came out. So there was sort of like I grew up in this era where this stuff was sort of like just kind of permeated our culture, and then it kind of fizzled out for a little bit, and then you have Batman '89. Then that kind of fizzled out. Then you have the Spider-Man surge with the Toby films and things like that. So it's kind of like a little bit of a roller coaster ride. So it's not uncommon for me to run across someone like you who's like, well, I kind of know this or I kind of know that, but I've never really kind of been into it. But I want to learn about a good story or something interesting. So I think when you and I chatted too, it's like you want something that you can like something contained. You're not interested in reading 50 books right now. Like there's just a time constraints.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true. That is
yeah.
true.
So that's why I recommended, and you did read Kingdom Come, which is possibly, I don't know how people wouldn't have it on their best of all time list because it's such an incredible, like it's like almost like literature because it really isn't about, I mean, there are superheroes and it is about superheroes, but the essence of the story is more about like coming of age and youth and rebellion and, denying your purpose and those kinds of things. It's only a four issue thing. It's a very short graphic novel and that kind of thing. What was your perspective when you went to this?
Well, first off, the reason why I was interested in this, well, two of the reasons was once, like you said, it's something pretty impactful in the comic book space, but also the art style by Alex Ross, which
Mhm,
is something that you suggested, and also Ginger Ninja James. He said that like,
mhm.
yeah, you got to look at this guy's art because like it's just on another level. And so, yeah, as soon as I started reading through this and I was looking at the pages here, I was instantly hooked, yeah, by the art alone. And then when I saw where the story was heading, which was this interesting situation where they mix kind of like modern Christianity with this revelation, and
Mhm.
also like with superheroes and stuff, like that's actually a really cool idea that they went with. And the final point I would say too that really was intriguing was I was always curious, like what would happen if yeah, there was too many superheroes in the world, because you have these huge universes, DC and Marvel, and like they have just hundreds and hundreds of superheroes. And I was always curious, like, well, there's got to be a point where there's like one too many. How do you contain all of this? And the story does a really good job explaining like what happens when there's generations of them, and then like you said, it's a kind of rebellious and coming of age. They're just going around doing stuff that are terrible, and they've kind of lost their purpose of what being a hero is. And yeah, that concept alone was just really, really intriguing for me.
Yeah, the photorealism that Alex Ross uses is kind of a great gateway for a lot of folks that are really just, especially if you're into art first. This is definitely one of those books that if you have never really picked up Kingdom Come, you should be able to find a trade paperback or a copy very inexpensively, or even a library and that kind of thing. And you can see just Alex Ross's take on all of these characters have sort of kind of become in our comic nerddom very, very commonplace. And the book, it's sort of a great alternate future story of what could happen, right? That's kind of the premise of the book, is like this is the potential future of where we're headed with the superheroes, in the sense of their kids and grandkids and those kinds of things are out of control. And it's like, will the characters return? Superman's kind of Superman's retired. So it's
Yeah,
like, will he step up to the plate and kind of realize, listen, the world kind of has to have you, man. You got to go. Batman has basically solved crime. Like he has like these cyborgs that police Gotham City and things like that. And he's in like, he has all sorts of like mechanical gear and stuff to support his body. Um, but just have a great journey and a great story that's very right, compact. Would that be the best way to explain it? Because it's just a lot
yes.
happens in general, just a few pages.
I think what's crazy is how just about every page, or maybe every other page, I'm always seeing a different character, like a different hero or a different villain. And I'm just for somebody that's like not even familiar with a lot of these guys, and I'm sure maybe there's a lot of them that are like only in this story. It was just amazing to see like the variety of different characters. I mean, there's like one scene here where there's a character that looks like a building, like a
Mhm.
cathedral, And I'm like, what is going on here? And then there's like another character. I don't remember the name of the person standing, I think, on like the White House or something. It's like this
Mhm.
patriotic looking guy. And I mean, there's just it's amazing just seeing the cast of people here. And then, yeah, and then you talked about how like that. What I thought was cool was Batman. Yeah, he solved crime in Gotham, and he's got these like robots running around patrolling, kind of like Iron Man. Well, not Ultron, but kind of like Ultron era, right? With
Right.
the
Yep.
drones and stuff, like that style. And yeah, it's just all of this was just pretty cool to see. And yeah, it was really fun to read through this.
Yeah, it's one of these things too. I think when you reread it, it's one of these things you can come back to, and when you reread it, and you can soak up a lot more of like the backgrounds and some of the details that they kind of put in. It's really an interesting book on a lot of levels. And I think what they also do, I think, really exceedingly well was try to give you some perspective of like where everybody could end up, right? So you have characters that um retire, but also in different ways in different places. Like, it's like Green Lantern is just sort of like not relevant. You know what I mean? He's
Yes,
not
yeah,
that, he's just sort of out there, right? We're not just like just he's not doing anything for anybody. It's not really even like a negative thing. He's just out there, right? So you have little elements like that versus with someone like Wonder Woman, who's still kind of like at odds with her mission. Like she's at odds with her ideals. And she's the one that will, confront Clark and can talk to him in a different way that other people wouldn't be able to talk to him. And the story that Mark Waid put together, I think, with Alex Ross kind of deserves a lot more writing credit. And this is kind of I think some of the contention between the two, but was a book that holds up well for someone like me who's been reading comic books for so long, and then to be able to have someone like you who doesn't have like a library of references that they're getting, but you can still enjoy a book like this.
yes. I think this does well for somebody like me that has a basic understanding of like people like Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, even Green Lantern, and like just understanding who they are a little bit, and then you could read a book like this or a comic like this, and not get kind of lost in the sauce, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
Because it's very well self-contained. And um, even if they introduce all these characters, you're not getting thrown off, I guess. Because a lot of times I've read stuff and it's like all these new characters and you get thrown off by like, well, who's this and who's that. But I mean, what helps too is the visual aspect of it too. Um, the only person I was a little confused on was Captain Marvel, which I'm assuming that is Shazam. But
Correct.
was that like is that like a different name that they had at the time for this character?
Well, great topic. I'm glad we can transition right there. This is a great topic because let me try to minimize some of the so yeah, right here, center stage, he refers to him as Shazam, rightfully so. All right, so here's the story. Captain Marvel actually began in a book that's no longer called Wiz Comics. So the first appearance of Captain Marvel is actually in Wiz, and Captain Marvel was actually bigger than Superman back in the day, right? But through the course of time and World War II and all those kinds of things, and Wiz and the rights get all jumble mumbled. Once Marvel Comics comes along, and I don't exactly remember all of the details off the top of my head, they bought up the legal rights to the name Captain Marvel out from underneath this and during this transition. So when DC has this book, they now no longer have the rights to call this character Captain Marvel. So now they're
Huh.
stuck.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's why, even though he exists back in our DC universe, he kind of goes more by Shazam. He doesn't really go by Captain Marvel in the same way he used to. So that's why you end up with this concept of this character that's called Captain Marvel, but he's really he says Shazam, and that's what he's associated with is that phrase, the magic word that he says. Now, of course, the movie has kind of rebranded all of that, and that's kind of how he's known. But Captain Marvel existed in both places, in both companies. The Captain Marvel, which is the Marvel version, which is MAR-VELL,
Oh, okay.
and that character is this male character that is Oh man, there's been like so many iterations of him because he passes away in the middle of this whole this famous comic book story from back in the day where it's the Kree and Skrull War, and he dies. So you end up with these different versions of Captain Marvel that come about, which Monica Rambeau actually becomes a more relevant Captain Marvel. And the version in the movie that we got, the Carol Danvers character, she was just known as Miss Marvel. And she looks completely different than what we got. I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of what Miss Marvel looked like.
Yes, I
Um,
have. Somebody shared it recently on a live stream, or I think it was on Twitter, and I was like, "Oh wow, yeah, this is very different."
yeah, she's like this. She's always been played up as like this beautiful, hot, super powerful character. She was never this kind of like odd or sort of like, I don't want to say off-putting, but she's kind of off-putting um, version that we've gotten in modern comics because they kind of rebranded her after, I think it was after the Wonder Woman movie, but I don't know the timeline in the comics. So I wasn't actively reading those when they were being published, so I'm not quite sure of the timeline on when that. But I
But
know
it
that
makes sense though, because I
yeah.
think I would have. It makes sense because now I see the Carol Danvers MCU version everywhere. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that version. I remember seeing that style before,
Yeah.
and then like the more like what red and yellow blue suits.
Right.
Um, that probably was when I was a teenager. I remember seeing that in one of the Marvel cartoons. Um, I want to say I remember seeing that, but I know who Captain Marvel was, right? Because wasn't he a what'd you call them? Kree or
Mhm.
Krell? I don't remember
Mhm.
the word you said.
Yeah. Kree.
Yeah,
Yep.
oh, Kree. Okay, yeah, because I remember seeing that in one of the old cartoons from like the mid 2000s, and Miss Marvel was with him, I think. So that's pretty cool though. That little history there with DC and Marvel and the same name character.
Yeah, it is a little crazy to know. So this is what Marvel looked like. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah, I've seen that. Okay, that's really cool.
Um so what Marvel decided to do with their modern books was they needed to create this strong woman, Wonder Woman type character, and they decided to rebrand Carol Danvers as sort of like this Superman. She's because she's more Superman than she even is Wonder Woman. Like I'm not even sure I totally get what the new Captain Marvel Carol Danvers' weaknesses are. Like it's just I'm very confused because it seems like every time I think I've got it, there's another story that kind of contradicts that. So I'm not totally sure I get what her weaknesses are. And that's kind of we ended up with this new version played by Brie Larson. Um, it will be interesting to see because I did say I thought that there was a chance because of who the producer is and this new James Gunn thing that we might see Shazam survive into the new films or new material, not necessarily films. There is an in credit scene that has Shazam, this is Zachary Levi's character, ending up with the Peacemaker people. So we may see his character survive. He's probably under contract for more
Yeah.
material, so it wouldn't shock me we see more of that kind of stuff. So
Well, going back to the Kingdom Come comic, one other aspect of it that was really cool to see was the main character. I'm just gonna refer to him as a civilian, but I don't remember his
mhm.
name off the top of my
Yes,
head.
the
But
narrator.
yeah, the narrator, like he's kind of like it's weird. Like he's watching it all go down, kind of like um as a ghost, for lack of better words here. But and then like there's one point where they're all inside Green Lantern's like city, and they're having a meeting, and then like you just see like Flash like staring in the direction of this guy, and then he like pulls him out of like whatever dimension that he was in. And that just made me laugh, but also kind of it creeped me out for a second because I forgot that like Flash can. I mean, well, I guess this version of him, he's like way. It looks like he's way stronger than like the ones that are around now, because he's kind of, at least in the comic, the way he's depicted, he's like kind of always vibrating and like in motion, and he's not really like standing still like a normal human. I don't know if you
Right.
can add to that, but yeah. Anyways, that was a really cool scene to see that happen.
Yeah, so we'll go to Kingdom Come a little bit and just kind of give everybody a little bit of we'll fill in a few of the gaps because you covered a lot of the early plot points. And these are not really spoilers. This is more like think of it as more like compendium to what's actually happening here. So in the opening issue, in issue number one, we're introduced with this character that's in this hospital bed, and they're talking about these nightmares, right? The person that's in the bed is having these dreams about the end of the world, basically Judgment Day, right? And this quick little shot right here in the red, we're gonna get it right here for you, um, because he's in this hospital bed meeting with this pastor, basically this guy with the Bible,
Yep.
and and the guy with this gas mask and this red frame, this is a character called Sandman, and the original Sandman looked like this, and he's like the master of dreams and that kind of thing. So he was the one that was, given these nightmares. And now we're going to transition from him as this character passes away from old age. And it's going to now go to this pastor named Norman. And Norman really just doesn't want to deal with this. Like it's just too much. Like it's just so let me jump down here to the bottom where you can see where we get to the ghost thing that you were referring to. Because this is the battle scenes of the younger heroes. This is him preaching. Then he kind of gets sucked. Here's the Flash in motion you were talking about, and then we have this guy show up. So this guy is called Spectre, and Spectre is basically going to take Norman along to kind of see everything. He needs a witness, and it's basically nice. And I've talked about this with a lot of movies. Sometimes we have to have contrivances or things that we do on purpose. So there's a reason for the audience to be there. There's a reason for the audience to know what's going on. Or in the case of like the X-Men animated cartoon that I talk about, it's why we have Jubilee. Jubilee will ask these really dumb questions, and they're really there for it's them for it have a reason to explain something to us or to the little kid watching at home, because the show is made for kids. Same thing with Spectre. Now we can take Norman along, and now we're watching all these different events through Norman's eyes. And that's kind of what's happening here. He's like, I need you, Norman McKay. He's like, no, wait, okay, these visions are talking to me. I've gone mad. He's like, no, not really. I'm the Spectre. So I will say this version of the Spectre and the way he's drawn and handled, way cooler than just about any other version of the Spectre. So just so,
That's cool.
it's really, really cool. But the fact that they were able to come up with an idea like this, like you said earlier, like they were interwoven the book of Revelations and the Gog versus Magog war and all these Christian elements from the book of Revelations into something that's superhero related, I think is why it was one of the reasons the story is still timeless. This is 1996. So it's we're
Yes.
well over 25 years and we're still talking about this book as like a classic. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. 96. Yeah, that's. I mean, I'm as old as this comic then.
No, you're not. It's definitely older than you. Definitely older. All right. So any other last thoughts, or did it make you, was there any character you were like, you know what, maybe not today, but I'd like to maybe read more or learn more about this particular character and maybe you wouldn't have thought before?
Probably Superman.
Okay.
I never really cared because, like, yeah, you have this guy that's invincible, and then like his only weakness is a shiny green rock, as some people call it,
Mm-hmm.
and like I don't know. I mean, I told you recently. I think I watched the original Christopher Reeves Superman movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I watched the first two actually, and I was just really blown away by those movies. Not only because it's a superhero movie from that time period, but just the acting and also the storytelling was just it was really cool. But like Superman's character, like it was just it's more than just being like this invincible human being or whatever, this alien. It's about like taking that power and like using it for good and being patient and anyways, it was just amazing. And so I would like to read probably more Superman stories and or comics and especially see how he gets out of situations being like
Mm-hmm.
this uber powerful person. So that was really
Okay.
cool.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll piggyback off that. And again, more for the audience. I know that you've already got a lot of things that you are working on at the moment. So this may not be the best time to give you a recommendation. But for any of you at home, you guys you've heard me talk about this book before. Let me find tricky because it doesn't always, my search on this app doesn't always want to cooperate. Called All Star Superman. It is here. This is the trade paperback. So let me pull that up. There is It's by Grant Morrison. It's from 2011. Yeah, here we go. This is what the first book looked like. And this is the one that was referenced by James Gunn during their announcement of the next movie. I don't know because it does kind of contradict a lot of the other things that he has said about it. This is what issue number 1 looks like. You can look at trade paperback, All-Star Superman. It's just a 12 issue mini series. It kind of takes you through. By the way, this is Superman's origin in like 2 pages. Like there's no like
Wow.
this is all of the 78 movie basically within a few pages. And it jumps around through just different elements very, very quickly. The art style is very different. It was something very different at the time. So the design of the characters are interesting because it's just something different. It's something unorthodox, if you will. That's actually Lex Luthor there on the left.
Hmm.
So yeah, so it's another one of these, like, it's nice and self-contained. It takes you on a journey. You have different experiences with both aliens and different things, what he would do with Lois and technology and different concepts that are kind of like outside the bounds of what people normally think about with Superman, who really does have some fun villains and stuff to write up against and to have some good stories, but not always the best. I don't want to say series to read, but let's face it. I mean, it's after 10 or 15 issues, are they still good or not? Or yeah, it's just tricky. Where some of the mini series and things like that, it is easier to recommend those and pluck those out for folks. So
Right.
yeah, good choice. Good, good.
Well, I think I'm gonna give it a chance because it's only 12 issues, so I can definitely read that over a weekend or something. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, and the way they handle a lot of the art, I think it's very immersive. It's a completely different style than the Alex Ross, the photorealism. It's something, it's still traditional type of art from Frank Quitely. But it's also done in a way to move the story very, very quickly. And it's good and bad. I mean, there's not every episode, not every issue is great, but there's a lot of how it kind of flows together into like a bigger story arc, which I thought was pretty interesting for its time. And again, I'll be interested to see if that is some material that they try to tap into to move
Yes.
Superman forward. I'm not sure how they will, but that was what he teased. So yeah, awesome, cool. What else have you been able to fit in? Because I know you have a lot going on and things like that. And again, I could easily throw 20 things at you, but I try to be reserved and let you kind of pick and choose kind of the direction you want to go with some stuff. What else have you been able to kind of take in that you were like, oh man, I really was shocked at how good this was?
Well, I told you earlier that I just started reading the Kraven the Last Hunt, I guess the Spider-Man issue.
Right. Yep.
Um, I just read like a couple pages of it and I was already kind of floored by it.
Hmm.
I have a basic understanding of Kraven. I've seen him in like cartoons and some other medias, and in this comic alone, like he is way more, I guess, animalistic than I realized.
Hmm.
I mean, with I guess with the comic medium, you can really go all out, and you can't really do that in like in a kid's cartoon. So, yeah, I'm gonna keep reading that, and because it's somewhat of a self-contained story, and
Yeah.
so that'll be pretty interesting. Um,
This is the original story crossed over the different titles. So this will come from the trade paperback here for you guys. This is the trade paperback. Um, so
yep, that's it.
on the right will be the issue out of Amazing Spider-Man, and then you can see Craven there on the left. This is very, very iconic. And here on the back, so again, sometimes guys, if you don't know how trade paperbacks work, on the back, see how it says right here, it has like a little story summary. It says the ultimate tale of revenge. Here, make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, it's funny how it blows up on my screen, but then you look at the main share screen, it doesn't look that much different. But it says collecting Web of Spider-Man 31 to 32, Amazing Spider-Man 293 to 294, and Spectacular Spider-Man 131, 132. So 6 issues. So it's only 6 comic books. It crossed all 3 of the titles that were definitely live during that time frame. And interesting enough, this is one of those that I went back to read right away when I really got into comics, because these were already out when I got into comics. So here's the first part of the story, and you can see with the art, very immersive, very interesting. You're like, whoa, what is happening?
Yes.
That kind of thing. And then, of course, then you have your image of Craven. You're like, what on earth? And, very intense. You know, a lot of, like you were saying, you're just like, holy cow, this is crazy. And of course, there you go. He knocks creature's head right off. Like, it's just
Yes.
crazy what's happening. Like, what, dude's naked, decapitating something, running around. What is happening? So, yeah, especially in the fact that they, I don't know if you've seen. Have you seen the red band trailer for the movie?
Yeah, that was for
That was
somebody that's not
epic.
even a big superhero fan. Like that was crazy seeing that from like a Marvel movie, I guess you can consider it, or Sony.
Uh, it's a
Sony.
Sony. Yeah, Sony owns everything Spider-Man.
That's
So,
right. Yep.
again, so back in the day, um, Marvel went broke, right? They just
Yep.
sold all their rights away. They didn't know what else to do. So they have to release, you know, so much content per such a time and whatever. I just there's all these rules, right?
Yes.
Well, um, they had their problems with the Amazing Spider-Man time frame. You know, the Andrew Garfield time, and it kind of fell through. It just didn't go, right? So they had all these things planned out. And
Yes.
now, because they've been able to tap into this Tom Holland stuff and it's gone pretty well for them, they they're trying to kind of go a little further. So just a couple little shots we can kind of go through here with just um I was told it was going to be rated R. This was a red band trailer, so I was very curious on how graphic they were going to go. And Aaron Taylor Johnson, he basically played one of the Quicksilver in the MCU. So in the Age of
Yes.
Ultron, that character, right? That's him right there. And Russell Crowe plays his father. This flashback sequence, and there's all these hunting references and things like that. That's what you get. But what you get in this trailer that you don't get in most Marvel, which I think is what you were saying, Angry Canadian, is you get like graphic violence.
The brutality was just it was unbelievable. Like
Yeah.
this is the brutality I expected in like Venom or Venom 2 that we
Yeah.
didn't
Venom
get.
Carnage. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I said I don't understand why the studio would even try to make a Carnage movie if there's not going to be Carnage.
exactly.
Because this is not wanting to cooperate. I don't know why it's spinning like this. See if this is the shot where he just jumps through. Man, they really buffed him up. I don't know what kind of roids they put him on or whatever. Because dude looks huge.
Yes.
So, and it is, yeah, it is definitely hardcore. Yeah,
Yeah, he bites a dude's forehead.
he just bites a chunk of meat out of this dude's
Yes.
face. He just spits it out. So yeah, total epic, crazy tease of like a hardcore rated R. They took that, threw us a spear, threw a dude, threw a helicopter out the other side. So
It was wild watching that.
yeah, watch this. Just yeah, blah 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 blah, and just shoots him. He's standing in the blood of the guy that he's there to talk about, and then he just lets the crossbow go. Yeah,
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 that was crazy. Wow.
yeah. Yeah, you're gonna love it. I think Kraven's Last Hunt's fun. I will say I'm not versed enough to know the iterations of Kraven now. It's something I'm going to be trying to catch up on ahead of the movie. I remember reading some of them, but it's like the Marvel universe can get very complicated and convoluted sometimes. So I totally can get, lost in it as well, just
Yes.
because I didn't read every single thing. And just there's, I was on with Wakazashi's Tea House and we are talking about how Marvel has like, 23 books last week or something. It was some ridiculous
Oh,
number of books.
wow.
That I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know it was that bad. I didn't know it was the equivalent. And I don't think it's every single week. I think it's just the first week of the month. But even then, if they're even doing 50 to 70, it's like their content is just not good enough to be doing that. It's
Yeah.
just not. So,
As far as other comics, you recommended to me to read the Thrawn trilogy, like the older comics, like or
mhm.
the ones that are adapted from the book, I guess you could say.
Right,
And I think I read 3 out of the 4 or 2 out of the 3, however many there
right.
are. And that's been interesting. I'm not a big fan of the art style, but then again, I didn't
No,
grow up reading the Star Wars comics, so or even I don't know. Star Wars as a comic is just kind of weird for me, at least. So maybe I'll have to go back and read those older Star Wars comics because that art style looked a lot better than this one. Um,
no, I'm with you there because um, I love the Dark Horse stories, and the covers are truly epic. These covers are
mhm.
beautiful, right?
Yes.
However, I'm with you that some of the art on the inside, and this is all the ones. This is the ones that I even love. Like I've talked a lot about Dark Empires or and Heir of the Empire. But the interior art,
Leaves something to be
yeah,
desired.
it can definitely be on the little shaky side. So I can totally get you with that because, but it will save you time, like because there's three, just like the novels. There's three novels. There's three adaptations, but you can
That's
see
right.
with the cover, and then when you get inside, the art, the art can get a little away from. You can see there's not much detail on this guy's face.
Yeah.
Right, and you get into just the color palettes are a little strange at times, and it's like it's very cartoony, almost like a
Yes.
like an animated cartoon rather
Yes.
than like a traditional drawing style.
If you go back to
Um,
that first page, I
oh,
think
I
the one with the
talked about it in a
Star
second.
Destroyer, I thought the ship design, at least that first page, didn't look too bad.
No,
And then
you're
you
right.
get into the like the humans or whatever, the aliens. You're just like, whoa, what happened? Like it looks completely different. It looks kind of out of place. Um,
Yeah, this was very interesting. You're right. This has definitely got something that's very stylish and very. You felt like you're in a Star Wars universe.
yes,
And then when you went down here and you're into some of these other characters and you're stuff like this, and you're like, what am I looking at? I don't feel like I'm in the same place when I get to a
yes.
shot of Luke. See, there's Han. Han does not look right
No, he doesn't.
consistently, right? Just very inconsistent. That's supposed to be Wedge right here in the foreground,
Oh, yes, yes.
and it's like, they just, yeah. I don't exactly remember the timeline. I don't know that Dark Horse got this license. I mean, and again, the context again is there's no Star Wars happening when this is put out. Like the book and these comics kind of revitalized Star Wars fans because there's just no Star Wars. This is in the 90s and it's been it's been several years since Jedi. So it was something that we had. Um, but I will say that I totally get that, or some things that just don't adapt well. You just don't,
Yes.
and I will admit, when again, you and I've talked about this enough, and I think you've gotten to know me enough to know part of the problem is when you're raised on this, it's pretty easy to understand why we get kind of bitter and jaded when we lose our quality, right? Look at the
Yes.
Star Destroyer and the action and the explosions and
Yes.
right,
The
and then you
coloring.
have yeah, look at the details on R2 and there's Luke's face. I mean, sure he doesn't look like Mark Hamill. But again, this book is written before the movie even came out. But look at the detail and stuff like you were saying. You know what I mean? Like we have a completely different thing. It becomes a little I think it's a little bit easier to understand why we come across as being bitter old men sometimes when we're like, we were raised on this. But just so you
Yes.
know, we feel like there's been a major decline of quality here.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, yeah. So
Well, for like the final comic, I guess you can say I'm reading currently is actually, I guess you can say it's the first one that I've bought. Like I've taken the time to go and buy it, which is ISOM, Eric
yeah.
July's ISOM,
Mhm.
and the reason why I bought it was because he promised that he was going to make a quality comic, and he hyped it up, and I looked into it, and I was like, you know what, I'll give it a shot because it looks interesting, and yeah, I wasn't disappointed when I bought it. I mean, for starters, I like the graphic novel style, like whatever you call it, trade paperback. It's not even trade paperback, but like more of a book instead of
Yeah.
like the floppy style. Even though I grew up reading those Bionicle floppies, but the quality alone of the book is just it's really impressive. So I like it, and I'm looking forward to number two. And then he's got his characters as well. They're individual characters like Alpha Core and Yaira whenever those ones come out. So, I mean, this is a brand new like universe. And I like diving into like a brand new universe at the beginning because it's a little bit easier to do that than something that's like really well established like Marvel and DC. And
Sure.
there's 20 different iterations of Spider-Man or Superman
Right.
or whatever. So yeah, it's been pretty fun reading that and being part of that hype train, I guess you can say.
Yeah, I've tried to find ways to, and that's probably one of the biggest questions that I get. Is I like this character. What do I do? Like, how do I read? Like, what's your entry point? I think I asked you, like, what are some of your favorite characters? Because I don't know how to help give you a gateway or an entry point. Because, like you said, when you're looking at stuff that's been around, for 60 years or longer, it's hard to know exactly how to like have you jump in because, we're talking about like there's a book at least once a month. So for, 50 years, what am I supposed to do? There's I got a lot. You can read
Yes.
forever. And
Yes.
actually, that's one of the reasons I tell you guys, don't get caught up reading the bad stuff. There's a lifetime of good stuff to read. Just read the good stuff. Just don't even. I actually was reading. I'm going to do a stream, a comic book talk on. We did Old Man Logan,
Oh,
and
okay.
so started reading. The miniseries is great, and then when you get in, well, the graphic novel is actually lifted out of the Wolverine title, but then it gets its own version, like several years later. And I'm reading along, and then suddenly I got to this issue where the artist changed. It's some crazy story arc, and I just skipped it. So I just kind of skipped it. Next article, next issue, next issue. It was only for 3 issues, and it went back to normal again. I'm like, well, that was weird. Okay, let's go back to the story that I enjoy, not what was happening for a while. So from time to
Yes.
time, and there's probably a story. Some of them I'll know, some of them I won't know. You know, this is what happened. This is what was actually going on in the world at the time, things like that. So, but I think it's really cool that you're able to get in on the ground floor with something like ISOM because it's really kind of special when you can kind of enjoy it, sort of like I don't want to say in real time, but like as it sort of like finds its way and its feet.
Yes. It's cool because now like he's got like big name writers now coming in and taking
Oh
over
yeah,
like these characters and like what's his name? Graham Chuck Dixon, sorry, Chuck
Chuck Dixon.
Dixon
Yeah,
who's writing and like everyone's like, "Yeah, this guy's amazing." And I'm like, "Who is this guy?" And I mean, if and then they say like, "Oh, he wrote this character and he did this guy and this guy." And I'm like, "Oh, I know those guys." And if people are saying that those stories were amazing and like the characters, then he's probably going to take this universe to a whole new level. And so I'm really excited to see that, especially with I guess Yaira and these like the sisters, whatever I don't remember their names, but there's like two people writing the story. I
right.
mean, that's crazy. You have two people writing the story, like, and apparently they're big hits. These women, so yeah, it's really cool to see that or
Yeah,
be a part of it.
I'm super thrilled about the Chuck Dixon situation. Chuck Dixon literally wrote the Batman comics when I was like that was my heyday. You know what I mean? Like that was my time. So Chuck ran Batman basically. He was kind of running the show over there as far as some of these key titles, and yeah, I'm sure that it was definitely at the top of Eric's list to try to get him involved if he could. So that's great. So man, it's been awesome. We've talked for, over our 30, 40 minutes. So it's been great. Kind of get a feel for where you are on things and give people, hopefully people can understand that you're not alone trying to figure out how to enjoy this art in this medium, trying to get suggestions, ways to jump in. If someone like you can enjoy Kingdom Come as much as you did, imagine that being a good fit for pretty much anybody. It's a great recommend. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I would suggest that people like me who are not like into the comic scene quite yet or they're really interested or intrigued. For me what also got me started was watching YouTube videos of people kind of like doing voiceover of like comics. So
Mm,
I've seen or watched like voiceovers of some of the Deadpool comics or the Spider-Man ones and I think a couple other random comics. So that kind of I didn't read the comic per se. I just watched a video on it and it was really interesting. So I would highly recommend people if they don't want to read it per se, but they will watch a YouTube video of it. They should go look into that because that helped me.
I always I started doing this with Gray over at Wakazashi. So I thought I would throw it your way too. That we would just go and find some random comic, usually something very, very old, and we would look at together. So I'm going to pull that up. Let's find something I haven't looked at before. I've never heard of this. It's a comedy comic called Bug House from 1954.
Oh boy.
Here we go. I've not looked at this before. I've never heard of Bug House. So let's see what Bug House is. It says it's a comedy book. So let's see. All right, here we go. AC Bug House. We're going to read a 1954 comic together. Well, we're not going to read it. We're just going to react to it. Bug House. Here we go. Let's see here. See if I can make it.
Oh wow, that's nothing what I was imagining.
I know. So it's just these weird character designs.
Huh.
I don't. And then there's an ad.
Nice.
The charming birdhouse and complete bird care station for $1.
Wow. Ooh,
There's a
bird call
bird
record.
call record. All right. And then there's more ads for all sorts of gimmick stuff to mail away too. Here's your mail your coupon in.
That's
And
cool.
then it's called Salami and the Seven Nails. So this is going to be inappropriate. I can tell you right now how it's So yeah, this is going to be insensitive, I'm sure. This dude's shirt says "Eat at Joe's," and this dog is scratching. Don't understand how this all fits, but everything is very over the top. It looks like. Boy, are you fat! I just can't stand fat women.
Oh
So I
my
guess he's
goodness.
talking to her. Uh-huh. Yeah, that's great. Oh boy.
What is going on? The Grand Vizier on the little hat. Wow.
Yeah, Grand Vizier. That's what was on the hat, the Grand Vizier. Hi ho, someone called. Drat, my broken eardrum. Doggone, he's always wins my salary back after he pays me. I don't know what his says. It says something about Vizier as well, but it's yeah. Anyway, because it's newsprint, the colors don't totally match up, right? So,
Right.
back then, so they're offset a little bit. And sometimes you have that problem where some stuff you just can't quite get. There's like a talking cat asking about how about a shine buster? Look at these dusty kicks, fellas. Like, yeah, trying to do a shoe shine thing in here. And they're just talking. They're riding this little tiny donkey, I guess. And there's a
Oh my
mouse going, got a match. This is like acid trips or something. I have no
yes,
idea what's
yeah.
happening. And then the donkey, he falls backwards off the donkey. Like it's just like zany, crazy things happening. And next thing you know, he's looking at the silhouette of some lady changing. And he's climbing, he's making the Grand Vizier prop him up so he can look in the window and goes, wow. So I guess he's peeping Toming her. I don't know what's happening
Yes.
here. Oh boy, that's what he's seeing here. He's drooling, he's he's wolf calling. And then she turns around and she's got like giant buck teeth and she's cross-eyed. Oh, Kingsley, I got a big eyes. Yes, all for you, pretty boy, fatso. What you say, Lawfer boy?
Oh, that's the
Wh-
words you can't use these days.
Oh
Fatso,
man.
that's funny.
Oh man. He's falling backwards and suddenly there's a cactus there. There was no cactus earlier, but there is for this gag.
Yes.
Let's see if there was a cactus. No, there's no cactus anywhere in the scene, but now there is. So it can go in his butt, and then he's got the other Grand Vizier has to pull out the ouch, help, yip, ouch, murder. And then we just completely change where this person's. Oh, I guess that's a dude. That's supposed to be a guy with a beard.
Mm.
Oh boy, this is crazy.
Wow.
Look at her face close up.
There we go. Detailed version.
There's more detail though in that face than a lot of modern comics, so that's got
Yes.
to go right in the thumbnail right there. Strike up the band, fatso. And then we're gonna have another story. That's the end of the story, I guess. The end. There we go. She's shooting at his feet. Dance, move, my buckaroo, dance.
Right, what is going on here? That's like a Western style reference there,
I
right?
know,
Like the
but
cowboys shooting at the
uh-huh.
feet, and they're in some like vizier or what is this, like Middle Eastern
It's
or
gotta be Middle Eastern of some
Arabic?
kind.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is like a pirate thing. Is avast, you swabs.
Yeah.
Forward march. This thing is
Oh, wow.
so strange. It's literally like an acid trip. It's like a hodgepodge of like 16 different wretches. And by the way, there's this talking cat still. This cat's just sitting here. So he's been sucked up into it. And then the hat now says ex Grand Vizier.
At least they wrote that in. That's funny.
Yeah.
Little
And
detail.
then we got a story number 2. The Loonies. What a Family. Cheap Freeze by Colin Allen. And looks like they're ice skating on the roof of the building.
Yep.
And it's just almost like an orphanage, maybe. Let's
It says
see.
landlord, so it might be an apartment, just a regular apartment. One of
The
them was talking
loonies
about
and the
landlords.
landlord are still battling about water. Skating on the roof. All right.
This ice is a foot thick.
Oh, hey, Mr. Grumpus. We still hear scratching noses on the ceiling. All right. Okay. And then, okay, what I look out without a mustache? He cuts his mustache off, and they don't recognize him. That's the gag. I told Pop there's a strange man in the house. He's calling the cops. The cops show up. They're dragging him away.
And his wife
Don't you
is also
recognize
confused.
me? I'm your grandpa. I thought the
Or-
cops would never get him off the piano. It's just all these random bubbles and just chaos, and then
Yeah, how do you read that? That's what I'm
I
trying to
don't.
understand.
Yeah, I guess you would go across. It'd be, woo, what a struggle. Lady, are you sure you don't know this guy? Never saw him before. Shut up, you. Like, well, he didn't say anything because that bubble's down here. So, Leo, Lennox, Lambert, don't you recognize me? I'm your grandpa. Dog's going, roar, grabbing his tooth. I never thought the cops would get him off the piano. Nerve of him insisting he's my father in law. Yeah, bad man. Oh, yeah, where's your mustache? He ain't my grandpa. Wait till grandpa hears about the fight he missed. The thief, he's wearing my pop's pants. Pop, you owe me a new baseball bat. Oh boy. So it's just like zany madcap type humor, I guess, because there's just like, look at the ADD. Oh my gosh, it makes my head hurt just looking at this much stuff. It's like I feel like I'm looking at like an I Spy picture. Like find the
Yes.
parrot, find the parrot.
Oh yeah, so many bubbles, so many text bubbles.
Wow, that's a lot of speech bubbles, man. How do you like that? I sent him for steak, butter, and milk 2 hours ago, and he comes back with cheesecake. Ha ha ha. So every page is just there's a dude on a cow. What is happening? There's like a hobo like looking dude. He's got a phone that's disconnected. He's smoking a stogie, and there's this guy's pulling on a cow.
And what has he got in his hand there? Is it like alcohol
That's a booze. That's a booze
or booze?
bottle. Yeah, I think it says a cider, but it's basically supposed to be like a jug, like a booze, like the old jugs would have liquor in them way back, right? So cider mill, yeah, cider mill. But they just keeps going. It's like I guess it's another story, and it just keeps. It's just look at this. It's just crazy. Like there's so much stuff happening.
Wow. The garbage truck. Wow.
Oh, kind of profanity a little bit there. Look at that. We got. Oh, look at like a lightning symbol. They didn't even put it in like text words. They have like a lightning symbol and like an
That's pretty
explosion
cool.
symbol. That's different. There's just stuff everywhere. Look, there's fish bones and little bones and cans and shoes. There's a tire that landed on this guy's head. This is just every page. Look at all of the speech bubbles. Oh my gosh, this is nuts.
Oh yeah, that's
Then we switch and it's completely different too. It's completely different.
different story.
Completely
Sheesh.
different. So
And the art
meanwhile,
style's different, and
yeah.
yep.
So I guess they did. So I mean, it would be normal back then to have these anthology books, but it was just it's so strangely different with the ads and stuff. Like it's almost like shocking. Here's an ad. She's in her drawers, which I thought would be pretty risque in 1954. So okay, there we go. These are comfo guards. Oh, they're for ladies. And then the greatest self-defense offer ever made. I broke his hand like a match. 5-day free trial coupon. You have to mail this into the Andrew Publishing Company. Guerrilla self-defense. Free copy of 12 KO punches.
Wow.
And then we go to Rocket Man, Space Stories of the Future. You have this little camera for $1, I guess. And then we're going to have another comedy story with this pet shop with this weird alligator dog demon looking dragon thing in the window. Again, massive amounts of speech bubbles. Look at this crazy guy's outfit and stuff. Played for gags and
Was this like kind of in a Sunday paper, or was this like a
no, this is a
standalone?
comic. Yeah, this is a
Okay,
comic.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we went totally inappropriate now. Uh-oh.
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 Canceled. Pops is canceled for showing this.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Put that in the thumbnail. See what happens. The dragon grew up and the dragon got big and it's going away with the house. Its head's poking out the top of the house. The whole house is leaving. That's the gag.
They still call him a puppy. I
No,
saw
it licks the cop. There we go. That's the oh, I guess there's another even oh boy, I can't do more. This is crazy. It just keeps going. There's a
Yes.
lot of pages though. Look at that. There's another zany face.
Oh, that
I
one
don't
guy's
even know
got
what's
leg
happening
hair.
here. Who is this charming bag of jelly beans? Peekaboo. Sir, you're just a killer. She's like flattered by him looking at her like that. Okay. Just the art is so all over the map. There's speech bubbles that are everywhere. Wow. Oh man, this is crazy though. There you go, man. 1954. 1954.
What
Who
a
knew?
time.
Wow. Well, my friend, that's what I don't know. Maybe you didn't enjoy that or not, but it just seems like a crazy. I get to have that off your bucket list. Well, I didn't really read it, but I saw this 1954 comic with Pops, and I'll never be the same because things were messed up back then. I'm telling you right.
Yes.
All right, man. Thanks for hanging out with me, my friend. I'll make sure all your links are in the description, folks. Make sure you check out his content. He's definitely does a lot of really cool stuff and definitely a really great guy to get to know and things like that. So awesome, man. Thank you again for doing this. Folks, hang out with us. Subscribe if you're not. Thank you so much for being here. I am Pops.